Right. Speaking of which, Philipp Emma is now going to unmute there because I muted him here. Zoom, if you make a noise, the camera comes to you. So he's the CEO of PSN Technology, which I think is Dearborn, Livonia area based. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about your company first, and then we'll get into the more specifics of some of these questions. So this is actually the first time that I met him. He was recommended by Dan Keeler, one of my business partners on another project. So Philipp, tell us about your company.
Well, first, thank you, Mike and Matt, both for having me on today, and certainly appreciate that. PSN Technology was formed from both an MSP and an ISP. So MSP being a managed service provider and an ISP internet service provider. So we're able to provide you with connectivity via fiber, phone systems, cloud-based PBXs, able to do infrastructure cabling, manage your networks, and basically re-outfit or basically refresh your technology stack as we go through, manage, monitor, and basically do remote managing and monitoring of the systems that our customers have, and advise them on occasion if they wish to engage us, or obviously we do it automatically if there's an issue, or they open a ticket and work with them to resolve the day-to-day technology issues as we go through that. That's about it in a nutshell there.
All right, so tell us a little bit about how COVID-19 has created sort of this hybrid workforce where some people are still working from home at least part of the time, and the effects of that on cybersecurity needs.
Certainly. One of the big issues, as you mentioned, is when COVID-19 hit, all of a sudden we began having requests for people working from home, and obviously migrating their services and their connectivity to their resources back at the company from a remote location. So a lot of that obviously entailed making sure that we have some way to get to the resources for those individuals and make sure they're able to still work and be productive without major issue. But one of the things we notice is obviously the connectivity at home may not be as good as the one at the office, or because your kids are on that same network in the afternoon, may slow things down as you go through. Or examples that somebody at home may have used your company issued PC or computer and basically caused issues in that sense. So then we had to set up and protect the back end, meaning either create connectivity through a virtual private network, VPN, and then decide what's allowed through that pipe. How do we allow things coming into the corporate network, and obviously not allow other pieces, and also not allow you to use your connected items such as a printer or other things, or how do we balance that so you can still use your resources, you can still use your USB ports, you can still use your printers if necessary. But again, that's where the other gentleman just mentioned that it's, now all of a sudden you can take away a lot of that corporate information, and now you have it at home. And that becomes an issue. Knowing who downloaded what and where it goes has been somewhat of a challenge. And then all of a sudden we migrated everybody back initially, and then again migrate them back home. Now we're trying to come up with that happy medium of those folks that work at home and still be able to be productive, and those that are in the office. We notice that a lot of folks that have more creativity need to be in a group versus individuals that may be able to go solo, such as sales and some of these other folks that are usually loners out there doing it day to day themselves, are not as necessary to be grouped together. So working on those items as we go through this new age of information.
I remember the days when my daughter was a preteen and I made the mistake of letting her use my computer that I was using for my business. And when she left, I got her in the summers because I was divorced from my wife. I ran the check on it, and I had like 500 pieces of malware on my computer that I had to clean out. And after that, she was banned from using my computer. And I think I bought her one of her own. I said, "You want to mess it up, mess up your own," right? So yeah, I mean, that's a real challenge. kids get into your work computer and they don't know much difference, right? And they click on all these links, and the bad guys are just loading down your computer with malware, right?
Or other things that are worse, as he mentioned previously, with the cyber attack and things like that need to happen. So our biggest challenge is making sure that our customers and our partners have the ability to do incremental backups, so that if something were to get hit, we can go back 2 or 3 days, grab that information, bring it over. You may lose that 2 or 3 days, but at least you're not losing everything, and you're not being held hostage, because basically we can wipe it, restore it, and bring it back to life, to a point that preceded the attack. And those are the things that are happening. And a lot of things, being at home, you know it as well as I do. You see these emails come across. You see, the little nuances. Hey, you want a prize? Hey, look at this amazing video. Hey, it's from a friend of yours, but you're haven't heard from that person in a while, or that they're not usually sending that. And if you're not paying attention, those are the type of things that are going to grab you. And had an issue with a customer that basically clicked on a link, and within 8 seconds, they had about 8,000 emails go out. Microsoft shut them down. They closed the tenant off, and they had no access to their tenant, which is their domain, for their email for 3 days. Just because, again, they made the mistake of clicking something there. So again, there's a balance of making sure you're, as a gentleman mentioned previously, on the routers and the switches in the head end. You can certainly stop it there with a unified threat manager that you can put at the head end, which stops it from coming in to begin with. But again, if you're working at home, you don't have that luxury, because they're not behind your router or the company router. They're behind their Comcast, Spectrum, whatever they have for their services at home. So those become there, or else there are some newer technologies such as your antivirus. Obviously, it's always been there. Biggest issue with that is you need to run it. You need to download it. You need to actually activate it. You need to run it on a daily basis, update your definitions, and scan your computer once in a while. Most people just simply have the antivirus and never do anything beyond that. Now there's a newer product called an endpoint detection response software, EDR as it's called in the industry. And one of the leading pieces of that is a company called SentinelOne. And they actually is a real-time preventative piece. So if you hit on something, it'll actually block it. It won't even let you even bring it in. It won't even open up in certain cases if it's deemed unworthy. And what it does is it checks a whitelist and a blacklist and compares those and makes sure that the latest and greatest is out there. But again, in most cases, as long as there's human beings at the other end of a computer, there's not much that we can prevent somebody from clicking on something that's going to create a big issue for companies or for themselves, as you noticed and you just mentioned with your daughter, because they love to download all kinds of things. They agree to things because I want to see it. Forget about the ELA or the end user license agreement. Forget about everything else. They just click through and download it and present it to you. So,
yep, good old days.
Yes. So talk a little bit, if you could, about the unique challenges of smaller businesses, small and mid-sized businesses with these issues. They're probably not big enough to have a big IT staff. Talk about some of the unique challenges.
And again, most of those, as we said just now, is the emails. Obviously, not using the same password for everything you have, not keeping that piece of password underneath your keyboard. Using a somewhat of a password manager, that would be certainly helpful. Using stronger passwords, using two-factor authentication to allow you to make sure that there's a fail-safe check back and forth. But a lot of folks just, they just hook up their computers and hook it right up to the Comcast or the Spectrum or AT&T, and they're in the wild, wild west. And the biggest thing I remind customers, the simplest thing you can do is your antivirus is up to date. If you run it once in a while, if you do your updates that Microsoft sends, that covers you for almost 90% of your items. Okay. That's going to be there because a lot of that malware and a lot of the items are there because the softwares now come with it. If you're using Chrome, you've seen it on TV. They're developing some anti-pieces so that you actually, McAfee did it in the early stages, where if you click on a website, it went, hey, whoa, you sure you want to go there?
Yep.
You know, and now you see that happening with Chrome, and some of these other ones are picking up the slack. Microsoft has gone to a point at this coming this month that they are going to manage and mandate two-factor authentication. So you're not going to have an option. They're going to force you to use two-factor, which means you got to have a digital PIN or a piece down that you have that security code in addition to your password, because people just haven't gone the extra length. We use and recommend simple things. There's some free software out there like a KeyPass, or we use a professional piece called Keeper MSP, which we resell as well, that keeps your passwords and is able to generate passwords, also is able to keep your two-factor so you can easily log back in. Duo is another great factors software that allows you to do these type of things. But again, the biggest challenge is, one, most of these small companies are now realizing that the second highest expense to them is IT. Technology is becoming the second highest after payroll. And a lot of folks don't like that. They don't like to swallow that. Also, keeping up to date with PCs and equipment that's in the latest generation within the last 5 years is another big issue. A lot of folks use, computers that are 10 years old sometimes, because just, again, cost and availability, especially in these last few years. As we all know, chips shortage affects us just as much as the auto industry. And trying to find laptops, trying to find computers and servers, routers, switches are difficult. I mean, sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. So the supply chain is definitely impacted. But a lot of these small businesses, again, they're just not paying attention to what the employees are doing in some cases, and they don't have time because they're wearing multiple hats, and they're not a CIO. Or as the gentleman, CISO, which is even more complex.
Absolutely. And like you say, the challenge for very small businesses is they'd be lucky to have one person dedicated to IT, and their whole thing is keeping patches going and keeping the network up and running, and all that other stuff, maybe not so much, right?
Exactly. And a lot of times, unfortunately, because that individual, apologies, that individual is, if they leave or they bump their head, all of a sudden they're lost, or the passwords weren't with them, or trying to find somebody out there that remembers who installed that, who had the original piece, is a fun task at times. That's why somebody like us or an MSP is certainly beneficial to a lot of these small companies. They can assist them and work with them, and trying to find the right one that fits for you. To make sure they're more of your IT department. So even if you have one individual, we as the company are supporting that individual, making certain that they have a broader field to go with. So if they go on vacation or they leave, the owner and the business operation still stands.
Absolutely. All
right.
right.
So Philip,
go ahead, Matt.
If people want more information on PSN Technology, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, we have our website at PSN Technology.com. Obviously, our main number 313-792-8082. You can reach us as well. Certainly send me an email at Philipp, my first name here, PHILIPP at PSNTech.com. Happy to have a discussion, or at least go over and take a look and see what's going on.